Well, hello, free people of the Rocky Mountain region, and welcome to this Free State Colorado interview. Today, I'm joined by Danielle Jurinsky to talk about what's going on in Aurora with criminal gangs. Danielle serves on the Aurora City Council. Well, Danielle, I hope you are well, and thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Well, first off, tell us a little bit about yourself. Why did you decide to serve on City Council?
Sure. Well, first and foremost, I'm an Aurora native. I was actually even born in the city of Aurora. I've been here all my life. I served 9 years in the military. 6 of those 9 years was at Buckley Space Force Base here in Aurora. I graduated college from Community College of Aurora. I own businesses in Aurora. And I just I really saw where, especially at local government, folks like myself didn't have a voice at the table. And so I decided to run. Like I said, I've been here all my life. I know a lot of people, and I felt like I could do it, and I did it.
Awesome. Well, definitely thank you for your service, both in the military and, of course, in City Council. It's so important for individuals to get involved, to have a voice, to have a seat at the table, and to get involved in local government. So many people, I think, neglect local government and sometimes don't realize how powerful it is or how important it is to be at that city level.
That's right. I learned that very quickly. Let me tell you, I will be very honest with you. Before I ran for city council, I didn't have a full understanding of what kind of power and authority city council had. And I own bars and restaurants. And in 2020, obviously during the pandemic, when the government shut my businesses down, the local government here in Aurora, the city council at the time, while our businesses were shut down, brought forward a proposal for a $20 an hour minimum wage. And that's kind of when it shook me to my core. That's the first time in my life I really felt like the government, in fact, treaded on me. And I decided I needed to do something about it.
Wow. Yeah, so many small business owners have been driven out of Colorado, especially the Denver metro area, because of all these burdensome regulations and restrictions on their ability to operate. And, COVID was the death knell for so many different businesses. So thankful that you got involved and you're having a voice and pushing back a little bit against some of this authoritarianism we've seen.
Absolutely.
So Danielle, the big news right now is what's been going on in Aurora. There's this apartment building on Nome Street. It's been making the headlines. The residents have just been evicted. Building management blames criminals for preventing the maintenance and upkeep of the building. But it seems like the media and even the city has been reluctant to admit that there's this criminal gang issue related there. So Danielle, what's exactly going on?
Yeah, there is a very scary gang called the Tren de Agua. They are a known Venezuelan gang that has really started to take over entire areas in the Denver metro area. Now, I can speak really only to Aurora and what I've seen and what I've known. I'm sure Denver will remain silent on the issue. But this gang, they are very organized, and local law enforcement has made comments to me like this TDA gang puts the MS-13 gang to shame. There's been an uproar. Gangs exist. Gangs have always existed, and uh, local law enforcement is also telling me that gangs that have been, in parts of Aurora for decades, that they're even saying, and I quote, that this gang, that they are savages and that they don't even follow street code, uh, certain street code ethics that gangs are to follow. So these gangs have moved in, and what's really very sad is they are preying on other migrants that are here because they know that they won't call the police. They're scared of being deported, everything that goes along with that. So for the most part, these gangs are preying on their own people, and other migrants that are here. So horrifying things going on. And I know, the city's stance right now has been to portray this property owner as a slumlord, but there's more to come on this. There are currently 4 other apartment complexes in Aurora that are under this TDA gang control, and it has been talked about. I think I finally made enough noise about this and attracted enough attention that the city has no choice. The city is going to have to issue a statement acknowledging the presence of these gangs, and we're going to have to do something about it. I know that this Saturday, and I don't know if this order came, it must have come somewhere out of Venezuela, but the opposition party has put out an international call for a day of protest. And, well, 3 Sundays ago, what really caught my attention, and I don't know if you saw this story, but roughly 4,000 Venezuelans, by no means not all gang members, but roughly 4,000 Venezuelans took over an entire intersection, a major intersection in Aurora, shut down businesses, trapped people in their cars in the parking lot. They were shooting off guns, defecating in public, all kinds of things. With this, I think this Saturday in various parts of the nation, I think we could see more than 4,000 Venezuelans come together. And, not all of them are here for a better life. Not all of them are here to adopt our culture and follow our rules. And, even, in that group of 4,000, say 90% of them were, here for a better life and really truly, here under the argument of asylum. You take that other 10%, that's still 400 people in one intersection, in one major intersection, in a major city. We're the third largest city in the state. That is still 400 people that do not care about our rules and our laws. And it was complete mayhem. And we may see that again this Saturday. And I think the city now realizes, because we're going to have to we're going to have to go after these other properties. The city isn't going to get away with calling every apartment complex owner in Aurora a slumlord. So I think they've now realized that they're going to have to take a different stance and try a different approach, like the truth. And I think that you will start to see some of that come out of Aurora. Like I said, Denver, my guess is they're going to remain silent and try to keep this buried. But I think you will see Aurora become much more vocal.
Wow. Well, Danielle, why do you think, like, why would Denver want to keep this silent? Why wouldn't this be, a major news story? I feel like this is one of those topics that the news media should be clamoring 24/7 coverage. I mean, this is a big deal, but the news media and, like you said, the city of Denver, some of these politicians, they just really don't want to talk about it. Why do you think that is?
Well, you mentioned politicians, and it comes down to politics. That's what this comes down to. In the city of Denver, their city council is led by a super Democratic majority. And in the city of Aurora, our city is led by a super Republican majority on the city council. Most people don't know that, but we've fought hard for that over here in Aurora. And, they're playing politics with people's lives. They are playing politics with people's lives, and they don't want the truth out there because it hurts their image and it hurts their narrative. I know Governor Jared Polis has made phone calls, and I can only imagine that he's making phone calls telling people to tone it down. And again, I'm assuming, I don't know what the governor has called and said to city officials. But he sure hasn't shown up. I mean, he sure hasn't come out here to see for himself what is going on. And meanwhile, in California, we have Gavin Newsom out cleaning up homeless encampments. So I'd sure like to see Jared Polis come on out and help with some of these abatements. This is very real, and this gang is unlike anything our police officers have experienced before. And it's just not a good situation at all.
Yeah, I mean, I think there is a lot of political aspect to this as well. It's a very important election year. Republicans are expected to do pretty well statewide. So I can imagine, the compliant media and a lot of these Democratic politicians don't want this to become an election issue. I can't help but think that, combination of illegal immigration, crime, homelessness, and of course inflation. I mean, it's just some of the hottest topics that are going to drive people to the polls. And if candidates for office can really create that contrast between their policies and the current policies, I think that can make a difference. And I think that's partially to explain why, the media doesn't want to talk about it. They really do not want people to be talking about this going into the election, right?
Well, that's exactly right. And they're painting this narrative that these properties are being abated and we're throwing these poor people out onto the streets. And, let me tell you something. This gang, they'd already run through this complex. If you go back to, I believe it's June 28th, there was a massive SWAT standoff at this complex. And in fact, Tig Teagan, and I don't know in what capacity he served, but he was even called to respond to this. This was a humongous effort in this gang shootout to go after, some of these bad actors. And, you know, the fact that this is being so downplayed the way that it is, the fact that this is being portrayed that we're just, we're dealing with a slumlord who now is throwing these poor people out on the streets. Well, let me tell you something. I have spoken with the property owner several times. I've been in direct contact with him, and he sent me a master lease list to try and see if there were any people who had an original lease that were still at the complex. He sent this to me. And what I found interesting is when I was reading media reports, different media outlets were giving the name of different residents that were, stating that they lived there and, they had nowhere to go. And I couldn't find one of them. I couldn't compare one of those names to the master lease list that I have in my email. I had I couldn't find one of them. So, the gangs ransacked this property. And then I think whomever, and I don't know if they're legal residents, non-legal residents, but they certainly made homes in this complex. The landlord has not been paid any rent. And absolutely, there are several code violations. I mean, several at this point. But in 2023, the city signed off on property inspections in January, April, and November of 2023. And in Aurora's city history, we have never, in fact, condemned an entire complex like this. Never. So you mean to tell me we're setting history here with this complex that the city just signed off, passed with flying colors in November, and from November to June, essentially when the final shooting and standoff happened. So you mean to tell me in a 7-month period, this landlord just ignored so many properties to allow his building to be condemned? I wasn't buying it. I wasn't buying it from the beginning. I started talking to officers. I started talking to prominent members of the Venezuelan community that are here in Aurora. And I started piecing all of this together. And I realized that the city was, in fact, trying to cover this up and trying to downplay this and follow along with the narrative. And I refused to allow that to happen.
Wow. Well, I really appreciate your leadership on this issue. It's something that people need to be made aware of. And I think it is kind of silly that these people are claiming that this landlord, this property owner, just let the building fall into disrepair. This is expensive real estate, right? I mean, this is one of the hottest rental markets, hottest housing markets in the country. For somebody with this big building like this, I mean, it's a moneymaker. It's a big money-making property. No rational business owner would let this fall into disrepair unless there was some sort of other issue involved. So for people to make those claims is kind of silly on the face of it when people really think about it.
I agree. And this specific property owner, he owns other apartment complexes in Aurora, so he's followed, he's all of his inspections have been signed off on. He's owned complexes in Aurora for a number of years. He also owns complexes in other states. Um, you know, this is not a slumlord situation. There are many code enforcement violations at this point, and the building is in fact uninhabitable. But how we got here is not. That's where the truth is not being told.
Wow. Well, earlier you mentioned some of the differences between Denver City Council and Aurora City Council. And I think, it's really an important distinction to make. You see the sanctuary city status of Denver, you see the crime, the drug use, so much of the homeless issue on the streets. How has Aurora approached some of these issues differently than Denver?
Well, we implemented a camping ban, and we doubled down on it, and we abate camps, and with the Supreme Court rulings that just happened this year, now the rule used to be, the law used to be that you could not abate a homeless camp without offering them a place to go. So a shelter, a pallet home, a hotel voucher, something like that. The Supreme Court ruled you do not have to do that. They cannot be on the property. They cannot be camping on public or certainly private property. And no, you can abate the camp without having to offer them a place to go. Now, the city of Aurora, we've already invested plenty of money into pallet shelters, and we do have that available. So we are still offering that as an option. You certainly come across homeless camps that have children, different things like that. And, it is good. It is still very good to have that option, but we are abating camps much quicker. We're getting the city cleaned up. We're really cracking down on this. It's just a shame that parts of our city shares a border with Denver, because Denver is not taking a tough stance on this. And for many of these issues, drugs, homelessness, I believe Denver, in fact, embraces it. They have safe drug use sites. You will not see one of those in Aurora. So again, I think the biggest difference is they embrace things that over here in Aurora we consider crimes, and so we are enforcing laws, and they are making crime legal in Denver.
Wow. Yeah, very interesting. And I think it's a good case study. I'd like the voters or just the citizens of Colorado to really look at that distinction between Denver and Aurora, see the different policies at play, and kind of see how it plays out over the next few years and what kind of difference it makes. And yeah, hopefully Aurora can stay strong and keep the majority that they have and not let them fall into disrepair like Denver. But
Yeah.
what else can Aurora do? What can the city of Aurora do? What can the people of Aurora, or the people of Colorado for that matter, do about these criminal gangs, about this lawlessness, about these politicians who are enabling this, and the media who are failing to report on it? I mean, Danielle, what's your advice for citizens out there who are concerned about what's going on and don't know what to do about it?
Well, I do think, keeping an eye. Listen, Denver is the first largest city in the state, and Aurora is the third largest city in the state. If you think what's going on in Denver and what's going on in Aurora does not, in fact, affect the entire state, it does. It absolutely does. And so I would say, and it's interesting what you just said to it being a case study. I've had national reporters tell me that this is going to end up being the tale of two cities. This is going to be it right here. One under Republican control and one under Democrat control. But in Aurora, we still struggle because we still fall under a lot of state laws. And so I think for the rest of the state, we have got to get serious. Rural Colorado has got to rev up. We cannot continue to allow Denver and Boulder to decide our elections. We need to leave no stone unturned. We need to talk to everybody we can. And we have got to take this back. We don't have to be a red state, but we certainly cannot afford to continue to be a blue state. We have got to bring moderation back into politics in Colorado, and we have to bring that balance of power back, because we see how one power control in every branch of government in this state where it's gotten us. You cannot afford as much. You are certainly not as safe in some parts of the state. It is tougher to own and operate a business. So a whole laundry list of issues. But we really need rural Colorado. I mean, we're fighting hard here in a very urban part of the state. We are fighting hard. We have clawed our way back to have a Republican supermajority here in Aurora. And let me tell you, if you look at the demographics of Aurora, Democrats outnumber Republicans 3-1. So this can happen. We need to get our message out. We need to make our message very clear. We need to stick to the issues. And we need to start supporting each other. We need to start supporting each other. The fighting that is going on at the state GOP level is embarrassing. It is embarrassing, and it makes it very tough for the rest of us that are out here fighting on the front lines and telling folks why they should listen to our ideas and why our ideas are better, and focus on policy, double down on policy. Do not be afraid to talk to anybody. Do not be afraid, to get in any kind of a debate. This is the time. This is the time, and we need every other part of Colorado to join into the conversation. And we have got to bring balance back into this state.
Very well said, Danielle. I couldn't agree more. I think, the time to be afraid is past. People need to be bold. They need to speak up. Because we can see where this will take us if the course doesn't change. So it's the time for people to get involved, to use their voice, to maybe run for office or support candidates, or just do something. Just get involved and show up, because we know that this is not going to end well if good people stay home and stay silent.
And I agree. And I think that that's happened for far too long. And I admit, as I said in the beginning of this interview, before the pandemic and before I saw, how much control the government really had, I'll tell you, I did not know a lot about city council. I've always been a voter. I registered to vote at 18, and I've voted in every election, but I was never very clear on different parts of the government, and it has been made very crystal clear to me. And I think it's just about getting our message out. What do we believe in? What are our fundamental principles? And not getting into the weeds. Because listen, if we continue to take these staunch, hard line approaches, we're not going to win over the unaffiliated, and we need them. We need the moderates to be with us, to see how far left the left has gone and how wild they have become. And we need the moderates to stand with us, to hear our ideas, and there's just no way around it. So that the infighting, that has to stop. The extremism has to stop. Belittling people. I see it all the time, and I see it all the time. And it's got to stop. We have got to be the party of reason. uh, we know we are. We know we are. You watch what's happening with these protests, and again, how far left the left has gone. We are the party of reason. We absolutely are, and we just need to continue to act like it. And for a Republican like myself that is in the city of Aurora, listen, I swim with the sharks every day. I joke sometimes with Republicans out of Weld County and El Paso County and Douglas County. They think they're the toughest Republicans in the state. And I say, listen, let me tell you something. I've got something for you. You guys are in safe areas where you all agree. Those of us Republicans that wear battle scars coming out of urban areas where we are grossly outnumbered and serve on local government with actual card carrying socialists. I mean, you want to hear those debates go down. We are in fact the toughest Republicans in the state, and we need to continue to be the voice of reason. We are an inclusive party. We are a sound party, and we need to act like it. We need to act like it and stick to policy.
Wow. Awesome, Danielle. That was great. I really appreciate your time today. Is there any final thoughts, any other information people should know, anything that needs to be exposed or uncovered, or anything else you'd like to say before we end this?
Nothing else comes to mind, but any of your viewers, if you ever happen to pop through the city of Aurora, please reach out to me. I am very proud of this city and what we have been able to do and accomplish. And I really appreciate your time.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Danielle. Take care, and keep us up to date if there's any new information comes out.
Thank you, you as well.